Anna. I'm the CEO at Stickybeak. I think most of you might know me, but I really am a CMO at heart after spending most of my career in international marketing roles and most recently as global CMO at Les Mills International. In case you aren't aware, at Stickybeak, we love supporting marketers with what we think is a pretty awesome consumer testing tool that helps you make this week's marketing decision. But we also really believe in supporting you, the people behind all those decisions, because sometimes they can make you feel a bit overwhelmed. And we love running events that help you kind of focus on you and how you can be your best self, which is what today is all about. So we kicked off the year with a glow up event on being the best you. Now we're following it up with this webinar with the amazing Megan, which will focus on brain health, particularly, which we know is a really hot topic when I was recently at Expo West, not only in supplements now, but also food and beverages, kind of jumping into this space. So as I said, we're really lucky to have you, Megan, to join us, the founder and chief vitality officer at the Vitology Project. It's a great title, yeah. Do you want to do a quick introduction to yourself and let us know a bit about the Vitology Project and why you started it?
Yep, sure. Thanks, Anna. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm really excited to talk with you all today. So yeah, as Anna said, I'm Megan. So I'm the founder of the Vitology Project. So our company is all about brain health and mental well-being. So we manufacture a range of supplements to help with sort of all aspects, well, nearly all aspects of brain health, whether it's sleep, stress, neuroinflammation, which we'll talk about a bit later. So I started the Vitology Project about 10 years ago because I had big bouts of mental health issues through my 20s and 30s, and I'd done my degree in natural medicine, and I wanted to look into more of natural ways to help support brain health and mental well-being. And through that, I discovered alternate causes such as neuroinflammation. And so I subsequently have done my master's in neuroscience as well. And so I'm combining two things that I love, natural medicine and neuroscience, to ultimately help all the people like me that struggle, whether it's that day-to-day stress, brain fog, mental fatigue, all the way through to, those more serious things like depression, even like ADHD, cognitive decline, dementias, that sort of thing. So I love what I do, and I'm really, really happy and excited to be talking with you all about it as well, because that is part of our mission. Like we make supplements, but a big part of my passion is to help educate people on the importance of brain health as a key factor behind mental well-being, like vitality and freedom, really, in our quality of life.
Yeah, and I remember we met at Naturally Good, and we chatted. I was just like in awe, basically, of the conversation, because I think even when you explain things, you explain it with that sort of scientific lens, but also with a really practical kind of part to it as well, which I think is really awesome, because it is a tough topic to get your head around. And, there's a lot going on in the brain health space. So I'm excited to be able to share this more widely with the group. We met in Sydney because I think at that stage you were just embarking on your Australia expansion. And yeah. I remember that you'd done some validation work and some consumer research with NZTE and Kantar. Can you tell us a bit about what you learned, in that process and how, what that looked like with the New Zealand, Australia kind of landscape?
Yeah, definitely. So we're all about like that customer insight or led marketing. So everything we do is sort of informed by the consumer. So we're based in New Zealand, and we've done a whole bunch of in-depth consumer interviews, primarily with Kiwis, with New Zealanders. But we were wanting to launch into the Australian market, and through research through NZT and Kantar, as you mentioned, we learned, surprisingly for me, probably not for you, wonderful marketers, but the Australian market is very different to New Zealand, so we can't just copy and paste. And so we wanted to test our assumptions, and luckily that was when you and I met. So we had been attending a trade show in Sydney, as in sort of that startup space, and so we wanted to obviously launch into retail into Australia, and that's where I was just so thankful to have met Anna at Stickybeak, because it's such an awesome tool, and it's quick as well. Like those custom interviews that we did were obviously invaluable, but to be able to test our assumptions very, very quickly was fantastic, and scalable as well. So that's it was great. And did you want me to go into some of the tests that we
Yeah, tell
that
us
we
more. Tell us a bit more, because you got some advice, right, about if you wanted to launch into Australia, because you had just the brain health product at that point,
Yeah,
zero
so we'd
product.
had, yeah, so Brain Health is our hero product. So that's an amazing formula that we've had for 10 years. And we primarily, up until that point, had sold it through clinics and practitioners, but we were wanting to launch more B2C and absolutely into retail. So when we were at this trade show, we were really lucky enough to talk with the CEO of Australia's largest health store chain. And she said, if you want to get into retail, you absolutely need at least 3 products, which makes sense because it's, you know, presence on the shelf. You can't just be in retail with one. And so we had products in our NPD pipeline. We had sort of 4 key areas, all to do with brain health and mental well-being. And we could only really, you know, with working capital and whatnot, launch 2. So we used Stickybeak to do that. So we had our 4 products. So we had a little bit about the formulation and obviously what each one was for. So we tested that, and it was awesome because we could test in our, we knew who our target persona was, so we could target those people in the key cities in Australia that we wanted to focus on. And we could also filter it to people who use natural medicine, you know, because we didn't want to be asking people who would never ever purchase natural products. So we did that, and the data was really interesting. There was a clear winner, which was our sleep health product, which makes sense because the research shows that, you know, 50% of Australians suffer with some sort of sleep problem. So it made sense that sleep health came out on top. But the sort of the place for the second product was not overly clear just based on that quantitative data. But when we looked at the qualitative responses, which is another thing I love about what you guys do, is because participants, you know, write the reason why, and from that it became very, very clear which product should be the second one, which was what we call calm and relax, because of the levels of stress. And it makes sense because if people aren't sleeping, their stress levels are going to be affected, and vice versa. If you're stressed, you're not sleeping. So they are the 2 that we launched, and we're now in retail across Australia in all the Go Vita stores.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And so you've got 3 SKUs launched now in retail?
Yes, we've got 3 SKUs in retail with the Go Vita chain and in other sort of independent stores as well in Australia. But that was awesome, and it's going really, really well. And we do want to do our other products, and we'll use the testing again to see which ones and when they're needed. But yeah, no, it was fantastic.
Yeah, phenomenal. It's been a very busy year. Have you been hoofing your own supplements daily?
Yes, yeah, I take all 3. It was a very busy end of the year because that was in June when we did that, and then we launched in December. So it was very busy because in Australia we have to do product registration with the TGA. So it was very, very busy. And yes, so that I could testify to the
effectiveness of your
effectiveness
products.
of the products. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that launch, and it always warms our heart to hear how the way Stickybeak does testing, which is the kind of that quant and that qual piece, really helped you with that decision, that fairly big decision, but that decision that you had backed by a bit of other research and data behind you as well.
Yeah.
So that's super exciting. Let's get into brain health though, because I love your products. I take the brain health supplement, and Sam and I at work have split some calm and relax for those times when we need it, today being one of them. And I do remember though when you were explaining things to me, like that, like you said, that education is actually a really important part of understanding when and why you need supplements, and why maybe you can't sort of, totally manage your brain health with just food or exercise or other things. Like it is a combination of things, and sometimes what you need in a supplement is just not there otherwise. But I'm still not an expert by any means in the space. I get a bit confused around, like, when people talk about high cortisol and what's driving things and what it triggers and what are just a bad day, and if I really know that I've got sort of a chronic stress problem. So can you tell us a bit about that space? Like, what is actually going on in our bodies? What's going on in our brain? How, what's happening here?
Yeah, sure. So cortisol is one of our stress hormones, and it's it's a really beneficial hormone for us. So it typically peaks in the morning. That's typically when cortisol is at the highest, to help us get up out of bed and motivated for our day. And it usually sort of peters off during the day, and if in a healthy response, that sort of remains low. Except for when there's those spikes in cortisol, which, if we're in an intense meeting or a crisis happens or something like that, it's really beneficial to have those spikes in cortisol because it makes us more alert, more productive, more focused. That sort of feeling of, when you're really busy, but you're completely nailing it. You're on top of it. You feel alive, like, high five yourself. It's like, because that cortisol is and helping you to do all of those things and like be in the moment and, be on the ball when you're needed. It's like, your brain's like, yes, come on, we got this.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really beneficial way that, cortisol helps us and helps in our brain. But the problem comes when those spikes, well, I guess they're no longer spikes, they're sort of, you're in a constant high level of cortisol. So when those days are, it's day after day after day, it's not just at home and work, and there's no, whether it's we ourselves aren't taking measures to reduce that stress response, or we just constantly, in a state of stress or perceived stress, because when we're stressed all the time, our perception of stress changes too. So when we have those chronic high levels of cortisol, it absolutely affects our ability to be in that executive functioning. That decreases, our mental energy decreases, our ability to make unbiased decisions. We don't trust as much. We can't get into that creative space or that innovative space. So it, ironically, all those things that the helpful spikes of cortisol helps us with, when it's chronic or ongoing for a long term, it helps to, it actually causes the opposite of that. And then that itself can become stressful as well.
Okay, I'm feeling like I'm getting into a high cortisol stage now. What can I do about it? Like, what is, because sometimes you think you're just having a bad day, or, you're tired, and so you're not coping with things as well. We're getting older, so maybe it's just a bit of mental fatigue that's not helping us. Like, what are signals? What are things we should be worried about? How do we understand sort of when and why we should be paying more attention?
Yeah, that is a great question. And this is probably the thing I'm most excited about, because it's something that people can do something about. So there's inflammation, like is quite topical at the moment. So you have inflammation anywhere in your body, but neuroinflammation is inflammation in the brain. So the things that can cause, which is something that we don't want. So things that can cause neuroinflammation, one of the key ones is chronic stress and chronic high levels of cortisol. So that can lead to neuroinflammation. The signs of neuroinflammation are things like low mood, mental fatigue, brain fog, can't focus and concentrate, a really rubbish sleep. You're easily, pissed off or annoyed. Your emotional response is out of whack. So all those, that neuroinflammation leads to those sort of symptoms, but annoyingly, those symptoms create what we call a positive feedback loop. And it's not positive as in a good thing, it's positive because it self-perpetuates. So the things that neuroinflammation causes, that then causes more neuroinflammation.
It's a downward spiral of no good.
Yeah, exactly. But the good news is, if you break that cycle using neuro anti-inflammatory, which is essentially what our brain health is. It's a really effective neuro anti-inflammatory that can help break that cycle. But what I'm really passionate about for people to recognize is those signals, like low mood, everything we just talked about, terrible sleep, your reactions are way out of proportion, making mountains out of molehills, all those things. see those as really, really helpful red flags from your brain that it's trying to get your attention, that there's something going on that it needs your help with. Because other parts in our bodies, when there's inflammation, there's pain, or there's restriction in movement and things like that. But our brain's way of telling us that is through those feelings and emotions and responses and things like that. So it's, yeah, for me, for people to see those rather than, oh, I'm useless, I'm failing, I can't do this, can't do that, or try and suppress that or band-aid it, or not pay attention to those signs, because chronic neuroinflammation not only affects our day-to-day quality of life, but down the track, the research continues to show a massive connection between neuroinflammation and mental health issues like depression and neurodegeneration, like dementia and Alzheimer's. And that. So it's sort of say, thank you, brain, for letting me know, because I know I can do something. I know I can do something about it.
And I really believe in that. Like, we have no issue taking a Voltaren when we've got inflammatory in our body, or we've got to sore something, and we will go to a physio, or we will whatever. But we seem to have this real block about our brain not being like another organ or muscle or part of our body that needs that same help. And immediately the thing is, it's a label like depression, or it's an issue that you've got that you can't do anything about. So even just that way of thinking about it, I think, is really helpful. It's a physical response, it's inflammation, and there's things you can do about that.
Yeah, and to know that even though it's a thought or feeling or what have you, but there's a physiological reason why you're feeling that way. Like when you're I don't know about you guys, but when I'm stressed or anxious, I can be like a real arsehole. Like, I'm snappy, I'm irritable, and I'm not reacting like I normally would. But there's not to excuse that terrible behavior, but there's a physiological reason for that. And yeah, so that's, I think,
there's something you can do about it.
Something you can do about it. Yeah, it's like, but paying attention to those signals, I think, as awareness, when we're aware of things, and we know that we can do something about it. But for everyone listening to know that when you start to feel that way, there's a reason for it. It's not just because you're a grumpy bugger. It's
it's actually something that, there's something that is physically wrong that you can work on, and then there's also other things you can actually do about it, right? Like, I remember when we were talking, there were some awesome rituals that you talked to us about, and one was even offered to me yesterday. We were having a cup of tea, and we thought about having, I think it was peppermint tea and binaural beats, or peppermint tea and colouring in. To kind of just help with our brain health. And but what are some of your go-tos, and to help? I know not necessarily with the neuroinflammation side of it, but just sort of go-tos to help with your brain health.
Yeah, I think there's probably, for me, five key things. One, kind of touched on it, that mindfulness. So whether it's like colouring in, or yoga, or meditation, or deep breathing, any of those things, whatever is mindful for you. Even like if you're home, with your kids, just being mindful and present with them in that moment, because then your brain's just doing one thing at a time. It's not, I've got to do this.
100 tabs like a standard marketer is.
Yeah, exactly. You're not jumping, or like you are there and you're present, and it's almost like gives your brain a bit of a break. So in the neuroscience behind the benefits of mindfulness is so compelling. We can no longer say it's just woo-woo, hippie stuff. It's really, really impressive, the results. And even like the US Marines are using mindfulness and meditation, and to help resilience on the battlefield and things like that. And even 12 minutes of meditation for these US Marines is making a difference. And like with meditation, there's lots of different apps. Like I use Insight Timer. And there's so many different types of meditation, whether you want to do a guided meditation or just deep breathing, whatever it is, there's definitely something for everyone. So that's, mindfulness is a key one. Exercise, like there's obviously, probably don't need to tell you guys, the huge benefits of exercise, but one of them from the brain point of view, exercise helps to modulate neuroinflammation, so decreasing neuroinflammation. So from that side, it's really, really beneficial.
That's cool. And that's like as much as a walk at lunchtime type exercise?
Yeah, yep, yeah, even just a 20-minute walk. And I find it really beneficial if I'm like really pissed off or annoyed about something, just going like for a power walk, it just sort of helps to dissipate that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
And hydration is really important for brain health and your stress response. So they say that we should drink half a liter of water for every 15 kilos of our body weight. So if so for example 75 kilos, that would be 2.5 liters of water a day. And even just like a 1 to 3% reduction in hydration has a massive effect on our brain function. So it's a pretty important one. Fourth one would be nutrition. So what we sort of call neuronutrition. So what we eat absolutely affects how we think, how we feel, how we turn up, our mental energy. Food, there's a vagus nerve between the gut and the brain. So if we're eating food that's really inflammatory, like high in sugar or processed food or things like that, that will affect the inflammation in our brain and then lead to those symptoms. So as much as you can, incorporating foods that are not inflammatory and incorporating foods that are naturally anti-inflammatory, like fruits and veggies and proteins. And we're definitely not I love food and I love drinking wine and I love all those good things. So it's not about not having those, because they give pleasure in different ways, but it's just moderation and just being aware. If you eat something and then you feel rubbish afterwards, notice this. Yeah,
The cause effect of that. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
and then and also like our brain is, I think, 2 to 3 kilos in weight, but it uses about 30% of the breakdown of our food, and it's a huge energy sucker. So we need to fuel it with good stuff. So just being sort of mindful of that, I suppose. And then the fifth one is sleep, which you cannot have brain health or mental well-being or a healthy stress response without sleep. And that knowledge sometimes is stressful in itself, because if you're lying there, you can't sleep. Oh my God, I should be sleeping. This is very stressful. So we don't want that, but it's about putting this, proactively helping yourself the best way you can, setting yourself up the best way you can for sleep. So our brains are sort of quite routine based. So if you give your brain signals that it's time to get ready to sleep, whether it's like dimming the lights or having a warm shower or spraying lavender or some smell that associated with sleep, reading your book in bed for 20 minutes, whatever works for you to signal, okay, brain, it's time to wind down now. And the obvious ones, like not watching TV or scrolling on your phone or doing intense exercise or eating a big meal close to bedtime, those sort of things. But sleep is when our brain consolidates those memories and the learnings from the day. Our lymphatic system works when we're sleeping, so that clears out the toxins. It's just we restore, like neurogenesis, which is when we grow new neurons in our brain. We need to be sleeping for that. So it's crucial. And anyone who's, like we were talking before, and about if you've had a rubbish sleep, that the day is.
When you've had a great sleep, oh my God, you feel $1,000,000. I know this probably fits into the routine process you talk about. I don't know if it's the right routine, but my routine is popping in my pods and listening to a crime podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if listening to death and murder before sleep is exactly the right thing to do, but gee, it works.
Yeah, well, if it works for you, yeah.
It's part of this routine piece where it's like, that's my signal to myself that it's time to sleep. No more looking at your phone, no more anything else. I put the timer on 15 minutes. I never hear it end. I must be asleep in 5. And like literally there's a podcast called Crime at Bedtime, so I can't be the only one that's looking for death and murder at night.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think there's something in that routine piece, especially when you travel a lot as well, and you're in different beds and noises and rooms, and so how can you kind of bring some of that ritual with you as well, for lots
Yeah.
of the busy kind of marketers we have on our
Yeah.
call.
And if those do all those things and it's still not quite helping enough, I mean, that's exactly why, we developed the sleep health formula, because the ingredients are formulated that with are specifically to help to get to sleep faster and to stay asleep, like be in that deep sleep, nourishing, restorative sleep for longer, helps to reset the sleep wake cycle. So if you are traveling a lot, that's really important, to get into the right time zone. And also, ingredients that help to reduce that stress response. So it's not, you haven't got that busy, overactive mind keeping you awake as well. So it's, sometimes we do need to a supplement to help. And I certainly do.
Yeah.
Just to help, as I was saying before, if you realize the importance of sleep, but it's stressing you out because you're not sleeping, then that can be a really, really, really beneficial thing to do.
Yeah, I remember we were talking a long time ago, so I might have this a little bit wrong, but the idea that even if you had a great diet and you were really sort of following all the things that your body needed, there are just some things in our diet now that don't exist, that our body needs. Have I got that right? Can you tell us a bit more about that and how that fits in with supplements?
Yeah, so plants produce this chemistry called secondary plant metabolites. So plants are freaking amazing, like what they can produce that humans cannot. So when you think us as humans, like physiologically, we're pretty much exactly the same as what we were, millennia ago, like, in caveman days, but our food has changed, enormously. But if you think we've evolved to, when we consume those fruits and veggies, to ingest that plant chemistry and use it in our bodies. So secondary plant metabolites are produced by plants in response to an attack on the crop. So whether it's a fungus or a pest or a virus or bacteria of some sort. So it's its defense system. So a crop will sense an attack, an invasion or attack coming, and through something called the Shishkamak pathway, it produces secondary plant metabolites which help protect the plant. So when we eat fruits or veggies that have high content of secondary plant metabolites, we utilize that in our bodies for various things. In our case, we choose specific ones that we know can navigate the blood-brain barrier and have a very effective neuro anti-inflammatory effect. So the problem is when crops are sprayed with agrochemicals, the plant doesn't have to produce its own defense anymore. So when we eat fruit and veggies from that, it may look great, it may be high in vitamins and minerals, but it's extremely deficient in secondary plant metabolites because it just simply hasn't needed to produce them because the sprays doing it for them. So there was studies done at Kew Gardens in the UK which showed the massive difference between our crops now versus say 200 years ago or so, which is scary. And to me and if we're not eating those things that we've biologically evolved to need, then it makes sense that there's more mental health issues, or we're not coping. I mean, yeah, absolutely, there's definitely more stress in our days, and well, potentially saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that back in
they probably weren't calming, were they? But yeah, there's like all these things coming in now around the environment we live in, the stimulus around us, the diet, not being able to kind of account for all of that. And yeah, so it just means we have to do some things differently to offset that, I guess, and supplement is an awesome way to get all that good stuff into us.
Yeah, and to be neuroprotective as well. Like as I said before, it's not just for the day-to-day quality of life, but it's that neuroprotection, just giving our brains what it needs just to function normally. It's not to make us. It's not like a make us superhuman or anything. It's just so we can function as we should and enjoy life.
In our life, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, we have come up to time, which came so fast. I'm going to fire one last rapid question at you before we wrap. So what we learned in our Glow Up event is the power of a minimum viable action. Thanks to Nat at PowerSuit. My favorite one from talking to you was 20-20-20, which is after 20 minutes of looking at your screen, look 20 meters away for 20 seconds. Which I thought was just a really simple thing to be able to do today, so I'll challenge everyone to do that. But what would your one thing be if you just had to give us one action we could take?
So besides taking our supplements, which is
Of course.
obviously going to make you feel amazing, but probably a quick one is just deep breathing. Even when we shallow breathe, our nervous system thinks we're in danger, like we're running from the saber-toothed tiger. But if we stop that, we can trick our nervous system into, that we're safe and we're okay by slow, deep breaths, in through the nose and into the stomach. And even just doing that 5 breaths, at least, the more the better. But that is a really quick, easy, free thing that you can do anywhere. And people don't even need to know you're doing it. Like if you're in a meeting, it's
Like those
delicious.
Yeah,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Delicious. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We will send out the recording, and as well, there's a few notes and links and bits and pieces that we'll share. So some things on binaural beats, some things actually on HRV that we're going to share a link with you about as well. And Megan has also very generously offered everyone a 25% off discount on her products. So to do that, just go to the website. There's a fun little quiz there that helps you determine which of the amazing products that might be best for you. And if you do want to purchase those, there's a 25% off discount code available. So yeah, thank you once again. Thank you, Megan, so much. I think we could have talked for an hour, but we got packed a lot into 30 minutes. And I hope everyone got something out of that as well.
Cool. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Bye.